Humankind has always abhorred limits. Since primitive man walked, Earth barriers have been found, exceeded, and the known world constantly redefined. Deserts have been crossed, mountains climbed, seas sailed, and we've even touched the face of the moon. Members of this unique group of people have an innate need to explore, a desire to challenge, and a willingness to take risks beyond the bounds of known science and common practice. Into this company of extremists comes Amelia Earhart, pushing not only the known limits of science, but the acceptable roles of women. Amelia soared into history, taking with her the human heart, the imagination of a generation, and the hopes of a nation. Her story is one of hope, luck, and unmeasurable tenacity, measuring each mile as uncharted air and proving conclusively the ability of an individual to change history. At an early age, Amelia was already tasting the real world and setting her own example. Amelia had to deal with a father who was an alcoholic, herself who had to try hard to fit in as she was not the girl that you would think of at the time, and the constant movement throughout the country on her father's searches for jobs. In fact, Amelia attended 6 high schools throughout the country before graduating. It wasn't until 1908 that Amelia saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair. That was only 5 years after Oliver and Wilbur Wright made their historic flight.
In 1917, she dropped out of college to work as a nurse's aide in Toronto, Canada. This jump-started her interest in flying, as many of the soldiers who came to the hospitals were pilots from World War I. She moved to Los Angeles, California in 1920, where her parents were living at the time, to continue her studies in medicine. But before she enrolled, she took up flying lessons and received her license in 1922. That forever changed her life. Not only independent in spirit, Amelia worked intense hours and recruited donations to fund her passion of flight. After Charles Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic solo, George Putnam, an American publisher, thought that it would make an interesting story for a woman to do so, and asked Earhart to do the task, later writing about the trip. A plane called the Friendship was to take her. She did not fly the first time across, and said she was only a passenger. A mechanic and another pilot would do everything. True to her word, she wrote the book 20 Hours, 40 Minutes for George Putnam to publish. Soon after, George asked Earhart to marry him. Finally, after 6 proposals, she agreed and they got married in 1931.
In 1929, Amelia helped organize an organization called the 99s. It was a women's flying organization to get females involved with flight, named after the original 99 members. Then started Amelia's record-breaking flights for women. In 1922, it was a 3-mile high flight. In 1930, a speed record of 181 miles per hour, then re-breaking her height record in 1931 to 3.5 miles. This record was set in an autogyro, a flying machine that is half airplane, half helicopter. Another record was the one that most remember her for. She would fly across the Atlantic, only this time she would do it herself. On May 20th, 1932, she took flight. Before long, her altimeter stopped working and one of her exhaust pipes burst into flame. She kept on though, and after 2,027 miles, she landed at a farm in Ireland. She had become the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, solo. Her last record was one for both men and women alike. She flew across the Pacific from Honolulu, Hawaii to Oakland, California in 18 hours. Her popularity grew exponentially with her friendship with the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, another woman whose role in history was far from traditional. After that flight, Amelia told a reporter, "I have a feeling there is just one more good flight in my system." This good flight that she referred to was going to set records for both man and woman. It was going to be her longest flight. At 27,000 miles, she was going to circle the Earth at the equator, something no one had ever done. At the beginning, there were problems. She started in California in March of 1937 and flew to Hawaii to refuel, but when she tried to take off again, she smashed one of the wings on the plane. 2 months later, the plane was ready again. Because of weather, though, she would be flying east rather than west. On May 20th, she took off with her navigator, Fred Noonan.
She made many stops on her way, each time refueling her plane. She landed in Tucson, Arizona, New Orleans, Louisiana, Miami, Florida, Puerto Rico, Brazil, then to Dakar in Africa, and finally to Karachi in present-day Pakistan. The plane was overhauled there, and soon they resumed their flight. The two flew to Calcutta, India, Burma, Indonesia, Australia, and Papua New Guinea. By that time, she and Noonan had flown 22,000 miles. After refueling, they were to fly 2,556 miles to a tiny island called Howland Island in the Pacific. This was to be a dangerous flight as the navigation was crucial. On July 2nd, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan took off from New Guinea and flew towards Howland. 7 hours passed and Amelia radioed her position. She had gone 800 miles. 9 hours after that, she radioed again. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel stationed near the planned destination picked up a garbled transmission from Amelia saying, "Cloudy and overcast." Then another, "We are circling." Amelia had never fully mastered the radio and couldn't tune it correctly. The next day, Amelia never landed. By that time, she would have run out of fuel. A massive search began. It was the largest search that our country had or has ever made for a single person. She was never found. To this day, there are many theories as to her disappearance. Some say that she was on a secret spy mission and was living undercover in the U.S. for many years after her disappearance. Others say that she crashed into the ocean and was just not found. Another theory suggests that the Japanese took her as a prisoner of war. A 265,000 square mile ocean is a big one to search in entirety. What should be taken away from her life is not that flying is a dangerous business, but a more broad lesson. Instead, we should see that when you find something that you are interested in, you should pursue it. Engage in it and take part in every aspect of it, because life is too short to know that your days are limited while wishing that you had done more with your life.
Amelia Earhart ties to the theme of the role of the individual in history by proving to be an inspiration to women of the time and today alike. She also teaches us the important lesson of never giving up and fighting for what you believe in. She reaches inside of us to that inner place where we dare to dream of defying gravity, testing limits, and flying free. In a poem that Amelia wrote, she describes her fight to find and break the limits known to humankind.
Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. The soul that knows it not knows no release. From little things knows not the livid loneliness of fear, nor mountain heights where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. How can life grant a boon of living compensate for dull gray ugliness and pregnant hate, unless we dare the soul's dominion? Each time we make a choice we pay with courage to behold the restless day and count it fair.